Welcome to the Neijiaquan podcast. My name is Isaac Kamens. This is a bi-weekly podcast where my friend Jess O'Brien and I discuss internal martial arts, qigong, and meditation. While we're on break, we're going to be releasing some interviews that we did over the last year. The full interviews are available on the Patreon, but this is the first half of the interview. We released Eric Peters. You can find that back in the archives. This one is with our good friend Lee Burkins. Lee's a martial artist, meditator, healer, fighter, soldier, veteran, and author of the book Soldier's Heart, an inspirational memoir and inquiry of war. Lee's been a huge influence on Jess and I over the years. He's a great friend, a really special human being, and a really knowledgeable dude. He's going to go right into it and just talk about his training and his approach to training and martial arts and all that. So hope you enjoy it, and thanks for listening. Well, let's back up. Why don't we just start, and why don't you tell us how you first met him?
Met Bruce. Well, I was in Boulder, Colorado, going to this university, and I was studying some Tai Chi Chuan with one of Chen Men Ching's students, a fellow by the name of Steve Katz.
What year was this?
Bruce, I think it was, 1979.
All right.
He showed up, and he was teaching in Denver. He had the school in Denver at 4th and Lincoln, but he would come up to Boulder and taught a class there, and there was only about a dozen of us in the class. It was basically, at the time, standing. I mean, we did a lot of standing, and Bruce would come around and adjust us to line us up. And one of the first things to me, when he lined me up and whatnot, where I stood there, he goes, "You're leaning backwards." And I said, "No, I'm not. I'm not leaning backwards." And he says, "Here, come over by the mirror." So I stand, get all aligned, and I turn and look in the mirror. I'm leaning backwards. But that felt natural to me.
Right.
But not... So that was that little class in Boulder, and a lot of interesting things happened there. He basically taught a Tai Chi form in Boulder, what the heck was it? The Shen Pan Ling form.
Right.
Okay, and of course back then I didn't understand internal work. I had so much tension at the time. But the form was what I learned. I learned about 2/3 of it before I left. So he had the form, and we stood a lot, and we had what was called energy gates, but he didn't call it energy gates. I don't remember what he called it, but we had the 3 swings, and didn't have a spine stretch back then that I remember.
Is that the core exercises?
I don't know what they're, probably, but it wasn't called energy gates.
Did it have cloud hands?
I don't recall.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd been practicing before Bruce came there, to say, with the Chen Man Ching guy, doing the 108 form and learn the sword form. Not, one day it was kind of funny. Bruce came to class, and he started with me. He goes, "Okay, what do you want to do in the class today?" And I said, "I want to do form work." He goes, "Okay." Then he went to the next guy. "What do you want to do?" "Oh, I want to learn about this." The next guy, "Oh, I want to learn about that." And after he went through about a dozen people, he goes, "Okay." He says, "Lee, you practice form. You practice what you want. You practice what you want." And then he left. He didn't teach the class. And one of my, I'm standing in some of the first classes, and he's coming around adjusting people, and he comes up to me and he goes, "Relax, relax." And I looked at him and I said, "I am relaxed." I actually thought I was, I kind of challenged him to the fact.
Yeah, God damn it.
And he was back then really interested in martial art more so, than the health aspect. Mm-hmm. In the Denver class, those guys were learning Xing Yi and sparring down there, but Boulder, we didn't quite do that. But Bruce would always demonstrate, and he'd want a demonstrator. And of course, being a fighter, I'd jump right up there, and I would try. I remember the first time he goes, "Here, punch me." And I thought, I'm going to take your fucking head off.
Yeah.
And then I went right at him. And the next thing I knew, I was fucking going across the floor in a fucking knot. So nobody else would volunteer for that. So I'd get up there and he was just slamming me all over the place. And we had a lunch break. And when we went out to lunch, some of the other people, there was only one other martial artist, a karate guy who wore his uniform into the class.
Oh,
but
wow.
we were sitting there eating, and one of the people go, damn, does he have insurance? And they asked me, why do you do that? Why do you let him do that? And I said, well, this is how I learn. I feel what he does to me.
Yep.
And somehow it transfers.
He always said it was the best place to be in the room, you know?
Yeah. Feel the real thing. He did this one demonstration to this big guy who had the karate uniform on. And he had him put his back against one of the pillars in the school. It was a elementary school. Or Bruce put his back against the pillar, and he asked the karate guy, he said, hey, can you make a knife for each hand? And the guy goes, yeah. And he goes, okay, come over here. And he put it right on his solar plexus. He says, I want you to push into me as hard as you can. And I assumed at the time that, of course, the guy couldn't push into him. But what happened when the guy pushed, his hand disappeared inside of Kumar.
Whoa.
It blew my mind. I mean, instead of Bruce resisting the hand, his whole fucking hand went into him. Because you know how big Bruce is. His hand disappeared. And he asked the guy, he says, okay. The guy's got this crazy look on his face like, what the hell? And he goes, okay, I want you to move your fingers around. The guy moves his fingers around and he goes, what do you feel? He goes, I feel your spine.
Yep.
And so I try to push into myself, and I get about an inch in. It was so sore. And I asked him, I said, teacher, how come when I push in on me, it hurts and I can't get my hand in there? He goes, oh, it's only constricted. He says, you got a lot of stuff going on. But it was mind-blowing when he shoved his hand in that guy. And then he says, pull your hand out. And the guy couldn't pull his hand out. And then, of course, Bruce then released, blew the guy's hand out of him.
That kind of softness is weird.
What's that?
That softness is unusual. I mean, it's hard to find. Even in internal martial arts world, not many people do that.
No, the idea of space inside yourself. And, that comes from a level of relaxation in all the bodies to some degree. Because the idea now, my practice after almost 40 years is the spaciousness of mind and body. And space is a really cool thing. In martial art for years, I would read about this emptiness. I had no idea what it was, but now I do. I can experience emptiness. I can sit in emptiness. And one of the reasons I can move so fast with people is because I'm empty. And when you sit in that emptiness, that's that idea of my opponent moves first, but I arrive first. That's sort of what happens when you sit, when you can come from nothing.
Well, that's the mind, no mind, right?
Yes, to a degree, that's what that is. Not, for years, I was always kind of interested why, going around to different study places with Kumar, especially in California, as soon as Kumar's class was over, he and Craig and Bill would almost run to their car and jump into it to go see a Buddhist guy.
Right.
A meditator. And I always wonder why the hell they seemed really excited about going there. And a few years later, I understood why. And this has to do with the nature of mind. Some of these Buddhist guys, they have this ability to show you your mind through what they do. It's called the pointing out instruction. Have you heard of that? The pointing out instruction. And what they do, they don't say shit. They just go into this, drop into their mind, and they're so good at it it affects you and it takes you in. It's really trippy. So for years now, I've been hanging out with Buddhist teachers to get these pointing out instructions. And the way they teach, one particular teacher I enjoy a bit is a guy named Tsoknyi, Tsoknyi. And he's over here in Crestone, Colorado. The one time I was on Maui, it was Kurt, I, and Bruce, and we went up to Haia. There's a little Buddhist temple up there, and this one guy named Kentrell was given a little class, and he was going to do the pointing out instructions. And there was only about 10 of us in there in a small room. Everybody relaxed, and Kentrell said, okay, well, I'm going to do it now. And what you do, you just go into a meditative state of space of awareness. You're not meditating on anything. You're just sitting in your awareness, and you're aware of your awareness. And so we were sitting there, and Kurt was alongside of me, and Kentrell did the pointing out instruction. It was amazing. I'll never forget it. All of a sudden, I was in space. It was quiet and still, and my heart was just alive. It was amazing. And simultaneously, Kurt and I looked at each other. We didn't say anything, but we basically were saying, holy fuck.
Kurt's a good guy.
Yeah. I was talking to him the other day. So when I first started Tai Chi, and you guys, the first thing I heard was the mind moves the chi moves the body. And I used to think, what freaking mind are they talking about? I have so many of them. I mean, I got a mind that thinks, I got a mind that calculates, I got a mind that makes pictures, I got a mind that just talks all the time. So what mind moves the chi? That's a really good question, because it's not the cognitive mind, not the mind we use to think about things. It's our awareness. And when they use the word pure, the mind being pure, they're not talking about morality or religion. They're talking about it's so pure, you can't see it. You look right through it. In Colorado here, we have a lot of lakes up in the mountains. And this is a perfect example of it. You go up on a ridge and you look down at the lake that's maybe, 500 feet below you. And if it's a blue sky, you look down at the lake is blue. It reflects it. The surface does. If it's a gray sky, the lake is gray. It reflects the gray. If it's a sky with sun and clouds and whatnot, you look at the lake and it's got sun and clouds and whatnot. But in each instance, if I walk down the ridge and go to the lake's edge and look at it, you know what I see? The fucking bottom. The bottom of the lake. I don't see the lake.
So that's that Buddhist idea that the mind itself is like clear.
Yes,
exactly. It reflects all this other stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. Clear.
Yeah.
Or the Buddhists have some great words. It's
empty.
Yeah, clarity, lucidity. And that's the nature of our
stuff.
But that's the mind we have, all of us. It's what they call the absolute mind compared to relative mind. Relative mind has to do with good and bad, right and wrong, up and down, in and out, yin and yang. And it's really neat. This relative mind, my mind, Lee's mind, the one I use all the time, it needs a place to come from. It's called something that's phenomenal. We have phenomena in the world. Phenomenal things are things, basically. And a metaphor for this is, if I have a tomato plant, the tomato plant needs the ground to exist, right? It comes out of the ground and it produces tomatoes. That's all it can do. So Lee's mind needs a ground to come out of. And the Buddhists have the term is our mind, the relative mind, arises, is born out of the ground of being, they call it. The ground of being.
That's that source. That's kind of Tao, how Tao differentiates into the Tai Chi, then Bagua, then myriad things.
Yes.
So we'll keep flowing into that, but I wanted to check back into Boulder. And when you guys were, you guys sounds like Tai Chi and what would become energy gates was the main source of study there. Did you guys ever also do like what he would sometimes call internal Shaolin or Tang Shu Dao or anything like that? Or that was in Denver, I guess.
That was in Denver. Yeah. We did I forget the name of the Xingyi exercises.
So you didn't go to the classes up in Denver then? You only
I went up there several times.
Oh, okay. So did he have like weekend workshops or something that you would go?
I heard he did, but I didn't attend those overnight ones.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But no, I was they did a lot of push hands down in Denver. And of course, again, I was just
he likes that.
Yeah, I back then, if you look at my elemental makeup, I was like metal on fire.
So you were doing yang style somewhere else, and then just sort of training with Bruce when you could. Is that?
No, when Bruce came to town, I quit the
Chen Menching, yeah.
Chen Menching, thank you. And actually, the Chen Menching teacher, Steve, when I told him about Bruce, he started coming to the class.
Nice.
Really? Yeah. Because, I mean, I had never seen anybody like Bruce.
Yeah.
And I was a fighter. I was in the military. I was a street fighter as a kid.
They say he was pretty fearsome back then, and I saw the old video. He would do like the monkey stuff on the ground. He would do the high kicks. He was doing it all back then.
Yes. Yeah, he was amazing. I mean, when I saw him do Bagua, immediately I changed my life. I said, I want to learn how to do that, man.
We all did.
Yeah. There you go. And now we are.
Yeah, no doubt.
Cool stuff.
Yeah, that's great.
Cool stuff.
So Boulder, let me think.
So I wrote I started in 92, and at that point, your ex-wife was training with Bruce. So I met her at the retreats, but you were off, I guess, training with other people and weren't doing stuff with Bruce at that point. And then I think you came back in around 98 or so. And that's
96, 97, I think.
Okay, yeah.
Amble Ranch.
Right. And that's when we met. So that there was that, what happened in that, 10-year period between that, and what were you up to? Was it, were you just working on the stuff you learned from Bruce, or?
Well, yeah, I was working on it because Bruce, I had him teach me how to do the mud walk and change direction.
Because I know you guys, you mentioned to me at some point that you guys would meet up in Hawaii when you were living out there. Is that?
Yes. Susan Rabinowitz moved out there.
All right.
And her and I put on a seminar with Kumar that was basically for massage people, body workers. Right. He taught them how to protect themselves and whatnot. But yeah, Bruce came to Maui once. I think it was in the late 80s, mid 80s. And that's when I first met Craig. Craig was like a babysitter.
Yep.
Yeah.
Still is.
I think Alex had just been borron.
Right.
So I went over to Maui. I called him up. I knew he was coming and took some privates with him.
Okay. Is that where the elevator incident took place?
Yeah. The elevator incident. And the big thing I learned about him in Maui was, for the first time, was opening and closing joints.
Yeah. That's a big one.
Yeah, the first time. Yeah, and I had to learn the yang long form from the Doom family. I studied with some of the Doom people in Hawaii. Yeah, it took me almost 5 years to get the whole form, because the guy that was teaching me, I would only catch him once in a while. Sometimes he'd be on a street corner and I'd be on the other side. I hadn't seen him for like 2 or 3 months. And I go, George, what's the next move? across the street. She'd be on one side of the street in busy downtown Honolulu. I'd be on the other side. I'd get a move.
Shake them down for a move.
Yeah, shake him for a move.
Get it however you can.
Yeah.
You know?
That's great.
So at the end of Boulder, I think Eric Peters was telling us one day in Colorado, he kind of like just packed up shop and said, I'm heading back to China. I'm closing the school. Boom, I'm out of here. You remember that?
I think I had left before then. And
Okay.
I had left Boulder in December of 1980.
Mm.
Okay.
And it was interesting. I was down on the mall and had a buddy with me, and my whole life had been upended. I quit school. I ran out of money, and I had a ticket to Hawaii. There was a friend there. I was going to go, and all of a sudden, Bruce was walking down the mall, and he came up to me. And at that time, I had a lot more reverence for him. Teacher, hello, teacher.
Right.
Of course.
And he came up to me, and he asked me what I was going to be doing. I said, I'm moving to Hawaii. And he goes, I think you should be training or teaching veterans. You should be working with veterans.
Oh.
You know, he said that to me.
Wow.
And I hadn't thought about that. And then he did this little job at the touch of my third eye, just went bap, turned around and walked away.
What?
And I'm fucking like having this fucking this manic fucking energy running through me. Goosebumps. And I had a witness. I said, look what he did to me.
That's crazy.
That's what every student is hoping the master will give them the sign or something.
Right.
Yeah, he did that.
Wow.
So it's, you know, I'm a horse's ass sometimes. People go, hey, I hear you do Tai Chi. And I go, I don't do fucking Tai Chi. Yeah, what somebody told me, I don't do Tai Chi. I said, I am Tai Chi. And all of us are.
That's why we like you, Lee.
But I feel that way.
That's great.
So you mentioned something about me talking about the ceremony he did in Denver.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. For the school blessing.
Were you there at that event?
Yes, I was. Yes.
Oh, wow. I've heard about that.
Yeah, it was, there was probably about 30 of us, I guess. And Bruce had on his Taoist priest robes.
Oh,
Oh, wow.
This is before he met Leo.
Oh, wow.
Okay? Yeah. And he started chanting. He chanted on and on and on, walking around with incense in Chinese, the chanting he was doing. And he opened up his lineage, he said, like a portal, a gateway to the lineage. And he took each individual person and had them come up, and he introduced us individually to the lineage.
Wow.
We stood, and the ceremony lasted for 4 hours. 2 people passed out.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah, everybody's standing there, and of course, you know, I didn't know how to relax. You know, I always held things. But yeah, 4 hours. And my good friend Mitchell, he passed out, and I just managed to catch his head before it hit the floor.
Oh, man.
And some lady passed out, and someone caught her before she hit the floor. You know, and then they just sat there. But that was the school thing, the blessing of the school, the opening of it at 4th and Lincoln. Yeah.
Did you guys do martial arts, or was it just all standing, or did he?
It was just all standing, him chanting, and taking one student at a time up to the lineage where he had opened this thing up.
Wow.
And then he would do this whole, you know, blah, 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 and for each person. So that's why it took so long.
Yeah. Was it the same songs that he sometimes sings in classes now?
Oh, I wouldn't know. It's something like that. You know, the liturgies, I don't understand Chinese, but the liturgies, again, they're sound. But yeah, something like that, but I couldn't swear it was the same thing. And again, I used to say there were 2 Bruces, pre-Leo and post-Leo.
Right.
Because he started changing when he studied with Leo.
How did he change?
Well, something happened. I think we were all up in Brookline, and I forget what the hell we were studying, a couple different things. Push hands was one of them. But Bruce, somebody asked Bruce how much he had changed in the practice. And of course, Bruce says, "Oh, I've been pretty much the same my whole life." And he says, "Where's Lee? Lee studied with me a long time. Tell him, Lee, what was I like back then?" I said, "Well, you were a lot meaner." And it shocked him. And he was, because when he did martial art, he kind of like didn't really realize what was the power on the other end. I don't know. Or he just enjoyed defeating guys or something.
Or both, yeah.
Or both. But not. I remember.
Huh? Oh, well, I was just going to say, I mean, even in the time that I met him, he's mellowed out quite a bit, like Mikhail said, I think this sort of sums it up, that, back then he didn't just want to show you, he wanted to do it to you.
Totally. Yes.
Right? Like, it wasn't just like, let me demonstrate. It was like, let me do it on you, like, let me, and so like you, I was always the one that would like volunteer to attack him and whatever. And I think that, he's lost his luster for doing it, like he used to really enjoy it. And now he kind of does it like reluctantly, but, he used to love it. There was like he would get this look in his eye, and just, and
yes.
It's probably from having kids,
yes.
But,
getting older.
Probably from what?
I've lost my lust for it too. Yeah.
I remember up in Brookline once, there was a push hands class. And so they wanted to film me with Bruce pushing hands. And so Bruce and I are pushing hands, going around, and Bruce just kept turning it up and turning it up and turning it up. And I was basically letting him do what he wanted, and after a while he was slamming me. I said, "Fuck this." And I slammed him a couple times, knocked him back. And then I think Thomas was in there, and he says, he broke it up like, "Hey, stop." And I said to him, "Let me see that." I said, "Let me see that." He wouldn't let me see what he filmed. He said to me,
I've done 3 things where it was just me and him and they filmed it, and I've never seen any of them. Like it's just in some vault somewhere, like me getting my ass kicked. It's like,
yeah. I mean, and he sometimes when we do martial arts, he goes from being the teacher to like actually, I don't know, he's always still the teacher, but you can see he gets some of that fire back. Like when we were doing those Bagua sessions up in Berkeley,
there's glimpses
that you were coming to, Lee, like he'd sort of switch back into his old self a little bit and get excited about the moves and get excited about whipping our butts. And like, all the training sort of would come back to him. It's like a spigot, like he turns on a little faucet in his head that the training all flows back. And it was like, you could see him sort of recapturing that era for the time. That was always a lot of fun.
Yeah, that sparring spirit, that mixing up spirit. Yeah.
It's the last time I think I saw him really like let loose was that time he kicked your ass at the party, Jess.
Oh yeah. Because he always likes the guys who volunteer to take the beating, right? Like you, Lee, or you, Isaac. Yeah. Like if you go up, he respects that, and so I ended up doing the same. And at his birthday party in Fairfax one time, me and Isaac were doing some stuff in the backyard, and he came out with his bottle of champagne and sort of lumbered over, and I could sort of see the shadow coming towards us. And then like, he just cut right in. He's like, "You guys are doing it all wrong." And then he just went on one of those where he just demoed everything. He's like, "This is Xingyi, this is Bagua, this is Tai Chi, this is Drone." He just did it on me, just boom, boom, boom. I kept coming back for more, so he just kept unloading on me. And that was a beating I'll never forget. But it was really inspiring too, and really set me on a path to like, okay, this soft power, this whipping power, it's not tense, it's not clenched, but it had this severity to it. Even though it was soft, it was absolutely vicious. It was really, when he cuts loose like that, it's a sight to see on the receiving end. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, I've been there. Yeah, and it's a learning experience. I mean, he's transmitting at the same time, man. I think it's pretty cool. And I asked Bruce about when we were pushing hands a little bit after we were done. I said, "Why were you kicking the shit out of me?" He says, well, I wanted to make it look real for the camera.
There you go.
If there's people watching, he doesn't want to lose.
No.
No. You get that camera on him, and he's, something sparks up.
No mercy. Yeah.
I'll be right back. I'm gonna grab some water.
Yeah.
Hey folks, Isaac here again. Thanks for listening. That's the first half of the interview with Lee Burkins. If you want to hear the second half, you got to check out our Patreon. You can join for $10 a month, and you can get all the exclusive content on there, interviews, lessons, things like that. So check it out. Link is in the bio as well as on our website. Thanks for listening, and take care.